Welcome back, NFC East fans. I am Marcus Mosher of the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and joining me today is the fantastic Patricia Trainia from Locked On Giants. Patricia, a big matchup this week for the Cowboys and the Giants. The Giants looking to go to 2-3, Cowboys looking to continue their win streak. How are the Giants fans feeling right now about their team?
Giant fans are feeling pretty good. I mean, considering they went down to what I call the House of Horrors in New Orleans, and they were able to pull off an upset victory in overtime, overcoming an 11-point deficit going into that fourth quarter. This is what I think everybody was expecting to see from the Giants, particularly on offense. Deep vertical routes, running the ball, moving the chains, no glaring mistakes. I mean, it wasn't a perfect game, but it was, considering what we have seen the first 3 weeks prior to that game, it was pretty darn close, and it had a lot of people smiling on Monday.
So let's start with Daniel Jones, because I really think that's the big storyline here. We're entering year 3 of the Daniel Jones experience. And I got to say, Patricia, he's looked pretty good this season. Like, definitely looks improved from last year. What are your takes on Daniel Jones so far?
Yeah, I definitely agree. He's looked a lot more comfortable in this offense. And, you know, coming into the season, there were 2 things I wanted to see from Daniel Jones. Number one, obviously, cut down on the turnovers. That just drove everybody nuts. Now, you know, he had the 1 interception against the Saints that came on a Hail Mary towards the end of the, I think it was the first half. You can't count that. No. Exactly. So as far as I'm concerned, he hasn't thrown an interception. He's been better with the ball security. You haven't seen too many fumbles. I think there was just 1 botched snap, if I'm not mistaken, and that came against the Falcons. But the important thing and the biggest thing, I think, is he's making faster reads and more accurate reads. So he's not being fooled by what he's seeing by defenses. And he's not sitting there patting that ball. You know, we call it burping the baby, you know, where he's sitting there patting that ball and looking, where am I going to go with it? He's getting that ball out of his hands and he's getting it to the right guys, and he's not getting it into super tight windows that have a high risk, high reward type of deal. He's taking more or less what the defense is giving him. And that just shows a sign of maturity that that the game is not only slowing down for him, but he's also becoming more patient back there in the pocket.
So I know a lot of Cowboy fans want to know about Saquon Barkley and the rest of the receiving corps, but you're going to have to listen to Patricia's podcast to talk about that, because I don't want to talk about the running backs right now. I want to talk about the offensive line, because I think that's what matters more here, right? Andrew Thomas last year really struggled as a rookie. How has he been in year 2?
Oh my gosh, like night and day. This kid has been so much better. He's been settled in his technique. He's always been coachable, but I think last year, the combination of having a bum ankle, of having 2 different offensive line coaches. I mean, if you consider this year how he's had a different left guard next to him just about every week, that kid has settled down and he has been so much better in doing what he has to do. And big credit and props to him for, you know, taking that coaching and being consistent with applying it. And I don't remember the stats off the top of my head, but I don't believe he's given up a sack yet this year. And I think he's given up, I want to say 6 or 8 pressures. I forget the number according to Pro Football Focus. So huge difference in Andrew Thomas. He's starting to look like the guy the Giants hoped they were getting when they drafted him last year, 4th overall.
Now, you mentioned the interior offensive lineman and the left guard. Now, that's where the Giants have been hit with some injuries. So is that the one spot that's still making you a little nervous about this offense?
Not really. I thought last week the Giants, you know, the pass protection on the whole has been pretty good, which is kind of surprising. The run offense, the run blocking, that needs a little bit more. I think, you know, they've struggled a little bit with that, especially on those runs in between the tackle. They are still having trouble picking up stunts and twists, which I believe the Cowboys like to do a lot of on defense. So that has me worried. But overall, I didn't think the offensive line last week looked that bad. And I can't honestly say this season there's been a performance, you know, other than maybe in the preseason, yes. But I can't honestly say that I've come away thinking, oh my God, this offensive line is garbage. I mean, they played pretty well considering the injuries they've had. They lost Nick Gates. They've lost Shane Lemieux. Billy Price had to get thrown in there. Matt Skura had to get thrown in there at left guard. So they've done pretty well there, all things considering.
All right, let's go to the defense. The Cowboys have a really good playmaker in Micah Parsons in their defense, who's been rushing really well. But I've also been really impressed with Azeez Ojulari. It's a guy I know the Cowboy fans liked a lot and wanted at the draft, maybe even at number 10. He fell all the way to the second round of the Giants. How has Ojulari played so far?
He has been probably their brightest spot on defense. It's interesting. I'm working on an article now about the Giants' pass rush and how sluggish it's looked. Ojulari, now he was kept off the stat sheet in the sack department last week against the Saints, but he has 3 of the Giants' 6 sacks this season. The kid has just been explosive. He's been, you could see that eagerness, that hungriness in him. He just needs to, I think, continue to develop plans for his pass rush, because sometimes when his first move is thwarted, he kind of is taken out of the picture. But I really like what this kid brings to the table. It's just a matter of time. Right now, it's interesting. I don't think he's the starter. I'd have to go back and look at the game books, but they've had Lorenzo Carter and they've had O'Shane Ximines as a starter. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of weeks or so, Ojulari takes more of O'Shane Ximines' snaps, because this kid has been that much better. And he's been pretty good against the run. You haven't seen a whole lot of instances where he's been trucked over by a running back or hasn't been able to get off of a block. So I really like what he brings to the table. And I think it's just a matter of time before he's starting.
So Blake Martinez is one of my favorite players in the league. Just so much fun to watch. He's a tackling machine. Went down with an injury. I don't believe he's coming back this season. How are the Giants going to replace him?
It's been tough. They've had Tate Crowder, who was Martinez's quote unquote partner in crime back there, take the helmet on. They've also had Reggie Ragland. And it's interesting because if you take the athleticism of Tate Crowder and you put Reggie Ragland's brain, his head.
You got a great linebacker, right?
you would have the perfect linebacker. You might have Blake Martinez plus.
Yes.
So yeah, Reggie Ragland has been the downhill guy, the 2-down backer, the guy you want in there against the run. And in pass coverage, you don't want him in there. He's a liability. Tate Crowder has a little bit more athleticism, but he's not quite as polished as you'd like to see him at this point. He will hopefully get better at it, but he's the one who can run, who has the speed. And, it's interesting. They haven't been playing Carter Coughlin a whole lot, which is kind of surprising. He's another inside linebacker. They have a young guy that they drafted in the 7th round last year. And Coughlin, I'm just surprised they haven't played him more, because he's another guy with speed and athleticism. And I suspect over the next few weeks, you'll see more of him, if not maybe as an off-ball linebacker, maybe as an edge rusher. But I'd like to see them get him more involved in that whole mix.
So I just have a feeling that's the spot the Cowboys are going to try to target on defense, just by the way that you're talking about him, Patricia, because it does seem like, I can remember back to Reggie Ragland's days at Alabama. It's just somebody you don't want in the field in man-to-man situations. So I would look for Dalton Schultz and Blake Jarwin to potentially win that matchup. The last one I want to mention, or last player, is Dory Jacks, a big free agent signing for the Giants over the offseason. How has he played so far?
Mixed bag. I think it's safe to say it's a mixed bag. They haven't quite had the lights out play from him. He had the big dropped interception. I think it was against the Falcons. There've been a couple times where he's gotten turned around and burned. How much of that is a result of, the time he had to miss because he did have that late training camp injury? How much of that is just, him getting used to the scheme? I don't know the answer to it, but I think maybe people want us to see a little bit more from him. Now, is that coming? You would like to think that with each passing week, he's going to get more and more comfortable and more sure of himself. So the jury's still kind of out on him. I don't think the Giants are necessarily getting, an early return on the investment they made in him, but there is optimism that he will turn it around and deliver down the stretch.
All right, Patricia, it's time to make your prediction for this game. Who do you have winning and why?
Well, I've said in the past that I wouldn't pick the Giants until they gave me reason to believe. And they gave me reason to believe last week. They did against the Saints. That said, and gosh, pains me to say this, I'm not quite ready to put them in an upset against the Cowboys on the road. I think Dallas is going to edge them out. I think it will be a close game. It's not going to be a blowout, as you know, some of the Cowboy Giant games have been over the course of history. But if I had to take a guess, I'm going to go 35, Cowboys 35, Giants 30.
Okay. I think you and I are both in agreement. This is going to be a close game because it's just what divisional games are, right? They're always close. So, all right. Thank you so much, Patricia. We will talk to you again later on this season. I'd like to say good luck to the Giants, but I don't mean it. So we'll just leave it there.
Fair enough. And I'd say the same thing to you, but I don't mean it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not ashamed to hide that either.